General Grievous. So this is the 2005 publication of the comic book, script written by Chuck Dixon, penciled by Rick Lenardi, colors by Lucas Marangan, a bunch of authors, a bunch of writers. I bought this initially for my younger brother some years ago. He went through a short comic book phase, and when he was finished with it, he gave it back to me, and I read it. I bought it for him because I'd heard from the Council Forcecast that this was the definitive version of General Grievous, and I definitely see what they were talking about. So after the promise of the character's introduction in the last episode of the first part of the 2003 Star Wars Clone Wars TV series, the Jedi Hunter was severely underpowered in further continuity. The Revenge of the Sith movie, TCW, oh boy, and with not much consistency. He's turned into basically a joke throughout that series, except for maybe a couple of okay scenes, such as the one in which he's torturing Eve Koth. But mostly, he's pathetic compared to what he could and should have been. And I'm completely on board with the Council Forcecast member Jen Sarai on what was done to him. And if you want to watch his rant again, it's in their video, their Council Forcecast on the Clone Wars, TCW retcons and retrospective. Very good rant. Certainly detailed. I'm sort of a casual comic book fan. I'm not one of the core followers of any series. Marvel, DC, Star Wars, Dark Horse, any of the publishers. I'm not a huge comic book collector. And I'm still... I collect a few titles I hear good things about, or that I'm just particularly interested. Right now I'm almost done, not quite, almost done collecting Fushigi Yugi Genbu Kaiden, which is shoujo beat manga, but... the Council Forcecast recommended this comic book so much that I just had to get it, and I really like it. In their podcast of episode 14, Dark Disciple, about 10 minutes in, Evan Nova 95 describes the General Grievous in this comic as the definitive version of Grievous. I think that's where I first heard it from them. And I must say I agree. If you want a true depiction of the General Grievous that terrorized the Jedi Order during the Clone Wars, the version that should have been the consistent one in the TV series, this is it. So in this story, Jedi Padawan Flynn Kaibo watches as General Grievous slaughters his master. And he goes back to the Jedi High Council and says, "We need to get rid of this monster." Which is almost what word for word Anakin is shown repeatedly saying in the TV series and the movies. He has killed hundreds of our brothers and sisters. Now, the Jedi Order was said to, around the time of the Clone Wars era, be made up of 10,000 Jedi, give or take some numbers of hundreds. So, hundreds would be quite a significant proportion, and this is quite soon after the Battle of Hypori, which is depicted in the cartoon series Star Wars The Clone Wars. The one with the Samurai Jack style, where Grievous is first introduced, albeit quite a bit taller than he should have been. Well, I think it was just their first take on what General Grievous would look like, so it's okay. I'm surprised it's hundreds he would have killed already. This is very early on in the war. Because of the gigantic continuity mess that's been created in Star Wars now, with Disney, with the new stories, with the establishment of the Legends canon conflicting with the new stuff, but the new stuff cherry-picking from the Legends expanded universe, the timeline of the Clone Wars is just in shreds. I think George Lucas originally said it went on for 2 years. Now it can't really be less than 3 or 4. Not to mention that Anakin ever having had a Jedi Padawan at all would make quite a bit more sense if the if the Clone Wars was expanded to 5 or more years, giving him time to grow. I'd actually, if I could write up a new timeline, I'd make it closer to 10 years. This story takes place only a couple months in, just shortly after General Grievous has been unleashed by Dooku and the Confederacy of Independent Systems, and he's already carved a huge bloody swatch through the Jedi Order. The Jedi Council says to Flynn, assassination is a coward's way out. They're still trying to stick to Jedi honor and principles, which I always found as too passive. Now, it's said that up until the emergence of Darth Maul in The Phantom Menace, the Jedi haven't been war generals since the 7th Battle of Ruusan, 1,000 years before. So, for a millennia, they've been peacekeepers with some ability to be warriors. So they've been able to take that kind of moral stance. But in wartime, while negotiation and diplomacy are essential, once you've got an adversary who frequently and consistently states their goal is your extinction, you really can't afford to play nice anymore. And that's especially the case in real life. Now, in his takeover of the Ugnaught homeworld, Grievous is absolutely brutal, as well as brutally efficient and relentless. He is the true killing machine he always should have been. He cuts through the planet's feeble defenses quickly, herds the native population into a single city center, and after coming across a group of Jedi younglings, I don't think they're even Padawans yet, he takes them prisoner, wanting to experiment on them and turn them into cyborg soldiers like himself. When one of the children, Alara, who I really like, that kid's got spirit, shows a hint of defiance, he holds her up by her arm and makes her watch as he orders the bombing of the Ugnaughts just to make a statement to her about how powerful and dangerous he is. This is the definitive version of General Grievous, and it is the character we should have gotten in all versions of him. The rest of the book tells the story of various characters' attempts to destroy Grievous and rescue the Jedi children, and I'd have really wanted follow-up stories to this one. It was a really good war story, showing both the true scale of the horrors of the Clone Wars, war in general, the terror that Grievous was, and it ends with more places this storyline could have gone. And even shows the critical failing of the Jedi Order and Council at this time, that I know this is early on in the war, but they're willing to expel and let go of their members for defiances that not too far in the future would actually start to seem kind of necessary and a lot more understandable. They're really too harsh too fast, and that came back to take them down in the end. if you want to only go with one take on Grievous, if you're tired of all the different little versions, the huge spectrum from badass to pathetic, and you want to just settle on one take, go with the one in this comic. And if you can, go read and buy this book. It's a really good story.